Everybody, my name is Keith Fabbri. I'm 41 years old, 5'5" and some change. Current weight this morning, about 204 to 205 pounds every morning. Off season, I'll get up about 250. Doing a heavyweight class and the Masters at the NPC Michigan State Championships in 4 days. So I'm 4 days out, real carb depleted, real tired right now. Obviously, if anybody's done the show, they know exactly what that feels like, that last week, a peak week with training and stuff. So we did the best we could training wise today to give you guys a good look at what I do even off season. Really, training doesn't really change. So the workout itself, we did started out with chest today, and I always like to start with what I call potentiation movement, which is basically an isolation type movement to kind of warm the muscle up. We will go to failure, just to kind of get the blood in the muscle and really kind of do like a pre-exhaust before I get into the heavy pressing stuff. I have battled some injuries the last couple years, especially now getting older. Always been a DC training guy. Dante Trudell, that style of training, Dorian Yates, kind of blood and guts training, high intensity, rest pauses, straight sets to failure, that kind of stuff. So I've kind of changed a little bit. I'm still doing it, but I do some pre-exhaust stuff now. Try to get everything kind of loosened up. I did have a small pec tear back in January before we started prep. So that kind of forced me to do a few different things than what I would like to do. And that's after tearing my rotator cuff on the same arm and the same shoulder back in 2017. So Father Time is telling me it's time to slow down. So we did pec deck flies. I did a couple warm-up sets, and then I did a failure set with a rest pause. And the rest pause, I usually take about 10 to 12 deep breaths in between. It takes approximately 20 to 25 seconds in between sets, and then I go with that second cluster. In the off season, I'll do 2 rest pauses. But now we're 4 days out. I just did the one. Still going to failure, obviously. And then I do a back off set. In the back off set, I usually take some of the weight away, and then I'll do one straight set on that back off set to failure again. And that's normal for me. Excuse me. And so we did that, and then we moved on to incline Smith machine press, and I did it with reverse bands, and that's just precautionary for the pec tear. I've been doing that the whole prep. Worked up to 405 with the reverse bands. Again, a couple warm-up sets, got into the 405, did a 405 to failure with a rest pause, and then a back-off set down to 315 with the reverse bands, just a straight set to failure again. Moved on from there. So I've done an isolation movement. I did an incline movement, so I'm working more upper pec and a strength movement. We went on to hammer strength. It's a flat press, but the way I do it is almost like a decline press because I'm doing it from a lower angle than a flat. But again, I did a cluster set there, which is something different that I haven't been doing, but I've been started doing it here at the end now that I'm getting more fatigued. Normally, I would just do a couple straight sets to failure on that. Today, we went with a cluster set. I did a set of 10, took 10 deep breaths, did another set of 10, did 10 deep breaths, and then went to failure to trying to get 8 to 10 on the last one. So it was 3 clusters of 10, basically, with only like 10 deep breaths in between sets. We just did that one cluster and then moved on to a machine I haven't used yet. I just decided to do it today. I figured it'd be a good time, so we went on to, it's kind of a cable crossover, like a seated, back-supported cable crossover machine. And I did cable crossover sets, supersetted with like a cable press, like a decline cable press. And I did 2 sets to failure, both movements to that. And that was it for chest. We're done with chest, move on to the delts now. Typically do train delts after chest. I feel like my shoulders are warmed up. I've had some shoulder issues and stuff, so training them more often with that joint, doing a chest day and then a delt day later in the week, it's a lot more wear and tear on the joint. I'd rather just get it all done in one day. Kind of save my joints a little bit. So I'll start out with a isolation movement or 2 isolation moves for delts, trying to get everything warmed up before I do the pressing. So we did dumbbell side laterals, worked up in weight to the final set. The final set was a drop set with partials. So I did a triple drop with the partial reps, like the swings, John Meadows style. Then moved on to the rear delts with a rear dumbbell laterals or whatever, just bent right over on a bench. I don't do full range. I see people doing full range of that where they're actually pinching their shoulder blades back together, going above parallel. You get a lot of back work in there when you're doing that at the top of the range. So I just kind of go to where I feel my rear delt start to contract, and then I stop and then go back down again. We did a couple sets there to failure. And then the last set, I did some partials where I turned my hands over to a neutral grip, straightened my elbows out, and did like partial reps that way. That's something that I'll do from time to time just to kind of really fatigue that muscle from every angle. I moved on to the hammer strength, shoulder press, a couple warm-up sets, and then I did one set to failure, and it's just a straight set to failure. At this point, I'm kind of tired. Not a whole lot left in the tank on low carbs, 4 days out. So we just did the one set to failure, and then went over to, there's an old hammer strength side lateral machine. And this is something I started doing a couple years ago, is supersetting side and rear laterals at the end of a workout. But I decided to use this one, and I did the side laterals on it the way you're supposed to for 20 reps. I immediately stand up, and you see when the way I do it, I put my head up against the backrest, and I bend over. And hammer strength actually makes one like that. That's a lay-down machine for rear delts where the pads sit on the back of your triceps. I'm kind of just simulating that, but by standing up. So I did rear laterals that way. 2 sets of 20. Supersetted. The last one, if you notice, I did like a kind of a different variation of it. I did 10 full reps, 10 partial reps, and then I did as many reps as I could with a squeeze at the top of the motion to failure on both. So it's kind of a little bit different way to fatigue. I'm just trying to get every ounce of blood in there and every bit of glycogen out that I can right now. So that was the workout. That's a typical chest and delt day for me. Nothing different off season. I'm just obviously a little bit heavier and a little more volume. I'll do more rest pauses and more back off sets and stuff. And I may actually add, depending on where I'm at with food and wise in the off season, I may add a move in there somewhere. But really nothing any different. I'm training as heavy as I possibly can to failure with a lower to moderate volume. And it's what works for me. It's what's worked for me for since 2009 when I started training for my first show. And before that, I was a power lifter, so it was, heavy weight and low volume then too. So it really didn't change much. I just did a few more reps when I started bodybuilding.
So go ahead and talk about your first show, Compton, what the experience has been like, and
Yeah, so Justin Compton is my coach. Me and him have been friends here for a few years now. We talk regularly. We were friends before this. Talking it over with him back in November, decided I wanted to do a show, and I was talking to him. I was asking his advice on a few things, and he said, hey, why don't you just let me prep you? Okay, let's do it. So, it's really nice having somebody who's got my best interests in mind and wants to see me succeed as much as I want to succeed because we are friends. But at the same time, he doesn't let me get a free pass. He's hard on me. He pushes me. I love it. I love being challenged and pushed. That's the athlete in me, going all the way back to, playing football and wrestling and, powerlifting in high school and baseball and running track. I mean, I did all that in high school. It was 5 sports in high school, and I loved when I had coaches that would challenge me and push me. That's the one thing. And he does that, not necessarily with the fire and brimstone, but he just says, hey, look, this is going to get fucking hard this week. Buckle down because you're going to fucking hate me in a week, but it's going to be worth it. And I do it. And we haven't had any kind of real snags other than just contests, getting pushed back and shit, which has been a challenge. But he has fit my ideology as far as training and high intensity training, as far as going heavy and going to failure. We meshed there. And from a diet standpoint, he figured out right away what works for my body and what doesn't. And it's been a good experience that way with finally kind of being able to come into some of the conditioning that I think I'm capable of doing, which I haven't necessarily ever hit before. This will be my best showing by far. The original show date was supposed to be June 6th. They got pushed back to the 27th, and now it's pushed back to July 11th. It's given us a few extra weeks to kind of reset things and go. I've been ready since before the 6th. So it's just been kind of like, I don't want to say put it on cruise control, but we've just kind of been maintaining into the show, tightening up slowly as we go. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get back on stage. I've been chomping at the bit. I'm mad for not being able to compete last year. I'm not happy about the last time I was on stage. That was a clusterfuck, to say the least, as far as what went on before that. So my last good showing was in 2016. I won the overall at the Great Lakes Ironman. So that was the last time I can say that I was on stage, and I was actually proud of what I put out, because 18 was a mess. There was a lot of things that went into that. Last year was a mess, going through some personal issues and stuff, and then in through this year through prep, which has actually helped me quite a bit doing the prep. It's kept my mind focused on other things, and really just allowed me to just stay the course and have a goal in mind. So it's been helpful with everything going on, to try to keep me motivated in a constructive manner.
How do you handle training and stuff when everything was shut down with COVID?
So I got lucky in that I was training at the time. I was training at Westside Fitness, and they closed the doors. And I have a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, Joe Myron, who has his own gym in his house, and he's got a full gym in his basement. When I say full gym, I mean a full gym. He's got a vertical leg press, squat racks, benches, hammer strength, shoulder press. I mean, he's got everything down there. Dumbbells, he's got the whole 9 yards, pull downs, cables, bands, everything. So I was able to continue doing everything that I do. We amended a few things, obviously with a little bit more barbell work than what you would normally do, less machines, but all the basic movements were still there, and everything was still able to to train heavy and hard. And I had a training partner that pushed me, which was really nice. So I just basically went over there every day at the same time after he got out of work. We trained together, and I'd go home and go on about my way. And when the gyms opened back up, I decided to come back and ended up back here at Maximus, because they opened up their doors. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. Not that training at Joe's wasn't great and stuff. It's just that when you get to a certain point in prep, it's a little bit safer with machine work on some certain items and stuff. And it allowed me to be a little more flexible in my schedule too, because I had to go back to work at the same time, because I was off of work for 9 weeks throughout the whole thing. So once I went back to work, if there was days that I had to stay late at work or other things that made things kind of a little more difficult, having to call and arrange stuff with Joe and stuff to be there. So coming back to the gym made it easier, because I could just come whenever I want. So that was helpful. As far as cardio and stuff goes, I did most of my cardio walking outside, believe it or not. First thing in the morning, get up, go walk outside. I got my Fitbit, so I just check my heart rate, keep my heart rate over 120, and track my time that way, and I just go for a walk. I do have a recumbent bike at home, so if it was raining or snowing or shit, because it's Michigan, you never know what it's going to be. I wake up in the morning and I can't go outside because it's just, I don't want to get sick or whatever, then I would just jump on my bike and pedal my bike for whatever amount of time. So most of my cardio got done outside. Since I've been back, I've been doing my post-workout cardio on either the step mill or treadmill here right after I get done training. But we're down to 30 minutes of cardio now in the morning, fasted for this week, and that ends tomorrow. So that'll be done. I'll be done with cardio tomorrow. I was up to 90 minutes of cardio a day at one point. We've kind of slowly pulled that back the last week and a half, down to 70 and then 50, and now we're down to 30 this week. So. So off season, we got up to almost 6,000 calories a day. Now we were at like 55 to almost 5,800, depending on the day, if it was a training day or not, with post and intra-workout carbohydrates. And then when we got into prep mode, it slowly came down. And the cool thing about Justin, the way Justin does is he doesn't set up the diet for the whole week for me and say, here's your carb cycle or whatever. He gives me a base diet and he says, hey, check back in 3 days. So I'll send him pictures in the morning and 3 days later, and he'll get back with me later in the day. Go, okay, tomorrow I want you to carb load, and I want you to eat 300 extra grams of carbohydrates spread across 6 meals, from one of these 3 sources, and he'll tell me what 3 sources they are, and I just kind of pick and choose how I want to put those in, and then it goes right back to the base diet, and then he'll change the base diet, and then he'll say, hey, check back in 5 days. Check back in 2 days. You're going to carb load tomorrow, so I want you to carb load, and then I want you to send pictures in the morning. I want to see what you look like in the morning. So there's been multiple check-ins per week on certain weeks, and as we've gotten closer to the show, it's been pretty much every day, every other day for the last couple weeks. But even in the off season was once a week, but like once we started prep, it was like every 4 or 5 days. I would check in, and then he would just do my loads from there based on what he saw, which was kind of nice. I didn't have to worry about it. I just do the damn diet, eat the same thing every day, and then he'll tell me if he wants something different for that day and that day only, and we go right back to normal. So it makes it a lot easier on me. There's less thinking involved. Because anybody that's dieted for a show, you get to reach to a certain point where you get really tired and brain dead, and you can fuck up your days real quick by looking at your diet and think you're on one day and you're on the next, and it just screws it all up, and you're like, oh shit, today's supposed to be a high carb or a low carb day, and I ate the opposite, and it's like, oh fuck, where I got one diet, that's what I got, and then I just know that tomorrow he told me either through a voice message or through text message, this is what I want you to eat tomorrow, do this. Okay, cool. So it's been really good, man. It's been I've never been one to want to let somebody else take over my diet. I've always wanted to do it myself, but I'm glad I did because it's been a lot easier for me. It's taken a lot of stress off me, and right now is the time where I would screw things up, and it's not going to happen because I've got somebody else watching it for me. So.
Everyone gets that point in the prep where it's like you just feel like your mind shuts off kind of like.
Yeah, it's very hard to stay true to yourself and be objective with the way you actually look because you're going to feel a certain way. And those feelings are going to translate into what you see a lot of times. You really have to be tuned into what's going on in order to do your own prep. It's not easy to do. And I found out I can do it. I'm just not very good at it the last couple weeks. So it's better off I could have turned it over to somebody the last 4 or 5 weeks, but I'd rather just work with them the whole time and let them handle it. So I'm excited. We got the off season coming up after this. The plan is to put on another 5 to 10 pounds of muscle this off season. And then I'm going to planning on doing the Universe next year in a Masters 40 class as a heavyweight. But legit heavyweight.
Hopefully everything will be normal.
Yeah, hopefully everything's normal and there's no new pandemics out there. There's no other plagues that decide to pop up, but since it's not an election year, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
People you'd like to thank, Bo?
Oh, man. I got a lot of people. Obviously Justin Compton, because, dieting me down and get me in the best shape that I've ever been in at this point, and will be the best by the time I hit the stage. John Pitch here at Maximus Fitness for, opening the gym back up, doing a good job there. Joe Myron for letting me train there while everything was shut down. That was great. I couldn't have done it without him. My girlfriend Jenny for putting up with my shit for the last 4 months because it's not easy. Valhalla Labs, Todd Lee, Howie Silverstein for sponsoring me. Give me supplements and clothing and all that good supplement shit, all the sponsorship duties. And then my kids, because my kids see the best and the worst in me sometimes, It's hard being anybody that's got kids and has dieted for a show knows that it gets really, really hard, especially if they're little and stuff, because you want to do shit with them and you want to play with them, but sometimes it's just not physically possible. And they're really, really good about just, sitting and enjoying time with me when they know I can't really do anything. Especially my 12-year-old daughter is just, she's something else. I'm really proud of her. She's handled the whole thing as far as stepping up and entertaining the two little ones when they're around. So my daughter Kayla is 12. She'll be 13 here on the 20th of July. So she's almost have a teenager, which, man, that's a adventure in its own. Then my 4-year-old son Kyson, who is an athlete in the making, kid, just super athletic, super busy child, to say the least. He just likes to. He's a wild child, that one. But I'll tell you what, he's stubborn to the point of where he knows what he wants. He's gonna make sure it happens. I'm so proud of that kid, and just watch him grow up every day is amazing. And then my 2.5-year-old Colton, the baby, which is not so much a baby because he's huge. Little curly hair, the ones that people have seen his pictures. That's the curly-haired one. He's just like me, so God help us all with that kid. But yeah, I'm really, really thankful for them every day because if anything, doing this now and allowing them, they'll have something they can see their dad and stuff, and that stuff I can be proud of, that I can show them pictures and videos and stuff, of when I'm older and stuff, and when they're older, they can see their dad, when their dad actually did something. He wasn't just an old broken down man, because that's coming. Eventually that's coming, But if anything, it gives them a goal too, to say, hey, if dad did this, I can put my mind to something. I can do whatever I want. So I lead by example for my kids, as far as just perseverance through stuff. I don't think there's enough of that in the world now, where parents are setting a good example for their kids as far as, pushing through adversity. Now everybody wants to cry and get a life coach, and fuck it, just buckle your bootstraps and go, type of deal. So I think that's it as far as thanking people. Thank you for coming out. This is great, you coming out and do this. I know we've tried to hook up before and haven't been able to make it work, so it was nice to be able to do it. I know you had some issues, so I'm thankful and appreciative of you were able to make it out. That was great. And then obviously I got anybody who wants to come watch the show, July 11th. It's going to be outdoors. Remy Berninga's putting on a great show. He's doing everything he possibly can do to make this show happen, so I'm thankful for that. Thankful for him for doing it, so that I have opportunity to compete this year, because July 11th was my cutoff. If there's no shows by July 11th, I wasn't dieting anymore at that point. I was done, so, because we started back in February, so it's been a little bit of a haul, man. And I'm not getting any younger, so the older I get, the harder it gets.